All right, so taking a look at some of the actual games, for the most part, a lot of our Sega stuff is right here. I actually didn't grow up with a Sega personally. A good friend of mine, he had a Genesis, and there was no animosity between Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. But that's the reason why my collection isn't as big with the Sega side, just because I'm not real familiar with it, so I don't exactly know what games to go for. The one thing I definitely love about the Genesis are the hard shell cases. It seems like it is so easy to find games in these cases as opposed to a cardboard box. We do try to avoid duplicates, but as kind of a good example, here we have Jungle Strike. We have one in the clamshell and then one in the cardboard box. Because of that, that's why we have both versions. So definitely let me know if there are any Sega games that we should look for. We've got some of the classics, you know, like the Vector Man games, and of course the Golden Axe, your not Final Fight, Streets of Rage. Got a lot of the Sonic games and everything. But I know that there were a lot of great games on the Genesis. Just need to know what they are. Just a couple of games to point out, though. We have Landstalker, which is kind of a Zelda clone on the Genesis, which is always cool. And then down here, this is actually a fun beat-em-up, kind of in the same vein of Streets of Rage, Pirates of Darkwater. And first of all, if you never saw the cartoon, oh man, you're missing out. At least nostalgic-wise, you're missing out. I have not seen this since I was younger, so I don't know how well it's held up. But this was a lot of fun. And of course, gorgeous, because it's on the Genesis. But we have a few, obviously, loose cartridges and everything. Next to it, I have a couple of Dreamcast demo discs. The other Dreamcast games are elsewhere. We only have, looks like 3 Master System games, 2 in the case and then 1 loose. And again, that's another thing where I wasn't real familiar with the system, so I haven't picked up a whole lot. Plus, in our area, it doesn't seem like I come across Master System games all that often. We have a few of these weird CDI things. They're not games because it's like a road atlas. We have a Jigsaw, Compton's Interactive Encyclopedia, which is probably like ridiculously out of date. Of course, we got a little Maximo figure from the game Maximo, kind of a spiritual successor to the Ghosts and Goblins series. And we've got Sniper Wolf and Meryl from Metal Gear Solid, and of course Selphie and Renoa from Final Fantasy VIII. We have a couple of the 32X games back here, and then Corpse Killer for the Sega CD 32X, so when you're getting all of those add-ons put together. And right below that, our very small Sega Saturn collection. Of course, for that, you've got to have Myst, because Myst was on everything anyway. And you got to have Tomb Raider, you know, that's where she started, not PlayStation. I always thought that was very fascinating, considering how well known she is to the PlayStation brand.
Speaking of Myst being on everything, we actually have Myst as a board game.
Yeah, can you believe that? A Myst board game, and it's probably just as confusing as the actual game.
Yeah, I think you have to solve a puzzle, like literally a jigsaw puzzle, and then you play the game.
Over here, we have a couple of Sega CD games. We've been pretty lucky to find a lot of them in those huge cases. And speaking of games that are on everything, Dragon's Lair, I think this was on just about everything. People joke that Skyrim is on everything, or Doom, and I see this thing on every system, I swear. But, got a little C&C Music Factory. Yeah, make your own music videos, because that was a thing, believe it or not. We do have a nice Final Fight CD. I actually have a better version of this, but you're not supposed to know that yet. Spoilers. I will say, whenever it comes to some of the disc-based games, I will make just kind of a real cheap little cover just so I can put it on the shelf. That's more to show people what we have. You know, if they're like, hey, I want to play a Sega CD game, what do you have? Instead of having them open up a binder or anything like that. Of course, I can't talk about Dragon's Lair without having Dirk the Daring hanging out anyway. And he has some little potions in his backpack, but I'm not going to pull those out because they're tiny. But yeah, you can see that smug look on his face. Look at him there with his sword. He's like, I eat all of your quarters because you don't know what's going on in my game and you die. And a lot of the 3DO long boxes you've seen in a pickup video. And if you haven't seen it, well, you can go check those out. We don't mind.
After you watch this video, though.
So, moving on from that, we have 3 full shelves of PS2 games. That's no surprise because there are so many PS2 games, it's ridiculous. But, oh my gosh, there's so many great PS2 games. If you are an RPG fan, Dragon Quest VIII, oh, this game is so wonderful. Beautiful music, just tremendous visuals, so much fun. I've always liked the Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior games, and when I got to play that, it was like a dream come true. That game is like how I always pictured the Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest games growing up. Of course, a couple of Castlevania games, they're a little questionable. So many movie tie-in games. If it was a movie, tell you what, it pretty much had a game to it. For better or worse, I'm sure. Of course, you had the Ratchet and Clank games, though. There were some good Final Fantasy games. You had 10 and 10-2. Even if 10-2 is not all that great, you still have Yuna running around in hot pants with guns. That blew my mind the first time I saw that. You had like super sweet summoner girl Yuna, and then all of a sudden she looks like she stepped out of a J-pop video. I mean, look at the transformation. It's like, what happened? It's like she woke up in a Pepsi commercial or something. The God of War game started there. Very fun and beautiful game is Odin's Sphere. This is a great one. And as you can see, maybe you can see, Atlas. Told you guys in the other pickup video, you gotta watch out for certain companies. Just like the toy up above, you got the Maximo games, a lot of fun. The Jack and Daxter series started there. The Silent Hill series carried on over there. They started on PS1. The Grand Theft Auto games, of course, became the games that everyone remembers them to be. Let's face it, no one talks about the original GTA games. This is usually the one that they talk about, though. Vice City, get your 80s on. Now, the thing is, even with all these PS2 games, we actually have a couple of Rubbermaid totes underneath our futon with sports titles. Because I wanted a little extra room, so I just pulled out all of the Madden games, the FIFA and golf and everything. You know, no one's really going to come over and say, hey, I want to play Tiger Woods 03. Below that, we have a few Xbox games. There's not a whole lot. A lot of that reason is because if it was on both systems, then I usually just picked it up on the PlayStation. But I've got a couple of demo discs I made like the little false covers for, again, just to kind of have it on the shelf and easy to get to. And below the Xbox games, again, with the Xbox, just like the PS2, totes full of sports titles. So many sports titles. But we have a small collection of the 360 games. So you got your Steelbook of Halo 4. And you got your Burger King games, because why not? But still a lot of great games on the Xbox, and it seems to be starting to become a fairly collectible system now. You have your staples like Fable, of course, if you like the RPG element, but like a little, choice in there. Grabbed by the Ghoulies. Rare. What happened? What did you do? Eventually, the GTA games made it onto the Xbox. So you got 3 in Vice City in a nice little duo package. And below that, we have some really cool little paper crafts that Lady Lacey made. So you have your Mario and Luigi, and they turned out really good. Yoshi just lost his feet, don't tell her.
I think those were Sonic toys.
Were they Sonic?
I think so. I think they were Sonic Happy Meal toys. Well, sorry, not Happy Meal. But you know what I mean.
I think this may be the majority of the Xbox One games that we have at the moment.
Hey, you got one for Christmas. What was it?
Oh,
Doom?
That's right, yes. Got your bottle of balls. Grab your balls and run. But we have the vinyl for Galaxy Z, a great little indie title. And we have these great big boxes for the Odyssey 2. Now, the interesting thing is, I believe there were only 3 of these, and in a time when video game systems barely even kept score, you had these that came with these massive instruction booklets, and aside from the cartridge itself, playing on a video game, they came with basically tabletop boards. So you have that, you have your cartridge, you have your massive instructions, and you have these. Now these are to make your placements and everything on the map, and as you can see, nobody used this. The punch cards, all of these tabs are still in there. No one has played this at all. The ones that are punched out, I'm pretty sure those were by accident. So that's kind of a neat little find, and it's a neat bit of video game history to think about a time when you had to use a lot more just to get your game on. And at the very bottom, it looks like we have some of our Lego Dimensions. They are still in their boxes because we have not played that game at all yet. Lacey and I kept wanting to get all of the sets that we wanted before we started the game, and as you can see, we haven't made it very far. You have the wee baby. Taken over by Cappy, I would see.
But turn it around though. It's actually pretty neat. It's a video game thing.
So you put the Wii remote in the baby's back, and of course the movement will tell if you're holding the baby the right way.
You have to quiet it from crying and feed it and burp
shaking
it.
the baby. Yeah. Be nice to the baby. But yeah, anytime any of our friends with very little kids come over, they're drawn to the baby. I mean, how can you not be? Look at that face. One final thing to show you. Years ago, I had bought a lot of Nintendo games that came with manuals. Somebody actually took a recipe box, and that's where they put the NES manuals. Kind of like what I did with the pencil bag type things from before. So it's a nice, safe place to keep all of your booklets. Obviously, you can keep them alphabetized and everything. And just the fact that you can keep them in here and keep them safe if you don't have the box, I thought that was an ingenious idea. So, kind of a little collector tip. If you have a bunch of booklets, no place safe to put them, get a recipe box. Okay, so the Nintendo stuff. First of all of the loose cartridges, they are stacked in alphabetical order, and I like how it looks when they're stacked on the shelf like that. The problem is, it is a pain to add new games on there. These right here are actually ones that need to be put in place, but I kind of wait until I have multiples to put in place instead of one at a time. I have thought about trying to do them more on a shelf, maybe some of our smaller black shelves where they're standing up on their side, because it feels like that would be a lot easier to do. It's just trying to find a replacement from the black shelves to put on here, because these are bigger shelves, and these shelves don't exactly move. But anyway, as you can see, we don't have a whole lot of boxed games, but we do have a decent collection of the loose cartridges. As far as the box games, we do have some interesting ones, like the classic series for the Adventure of Link. Now, the reason this is so interesting is because, of course, everyone is familiar with the gold cartridges, but it's the gray cartridges that actually I have heard you don't find as often. And, oh, this one, it's a nice looking cartridge too, by the way. But we also have just some typical ones that you kind of expect to find all over the place, like baseball and golf. Maybe not so much Dragon Warrior 3. I was talking about Dragon Quest, oh my gosh, was that 7 or 8 now on PS2? But Dragon Warrior 3, so old school. You have got to have so much patience to play those. One that I picked up for Lady Lacey, complete in the box, was The Last Starfighter.
One of my favorite movies!
And it's funny because I had actually just watched this movie with her for the first time. What was it? Maybe a couple of weeks before we actually got this game, so the timing was perfect. And of course, we do have like the cleaning kit one and everything, and just some others. What's neat about the Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego. So we got this from one of Lacey's friends, and It has the game in there, but something that you don't see too often, as I drop the box all over the place, is the book that comes with it. And I would think the reason would be people would probably take this out of the box, put it on the bookshelf, and totally forget about it. So the fact that the book was still intact with everything else was pretty cool. The game is in nice shape and everything too. We'll put the lid back on and put it up before I just keep on dropping it. Now for the cartridges themselves, we have all kinds. We've got some of the Tengen games. We've got some of the, I think this is one of the Camerica games for the Quattro Sports. Of course, not only does it look like an unofficial cartridge, but it's got your little switch on the back. You know, if it's not working in position A, try position B, because you're not supposed to be playing this game at all. One of the games that I grew up with, unfortunately, Back to the Future. We had some lousy games in my household when I was growing up. I hate this game. Of course, speaking of games that I hate, oh well, looky here. Here's another game that I grew up with, Friday the 13th on NES. Now, I have heard people say before, oh, it's not that bad of an NES game. When you've got like 5 NES games to choose from, and you're sick of playing Super Mario Brothers, and this is the only one you have, it sucks. Trust me. You do have the original Final Fantasy from so long ago, and I do have all of the Dragon Warrior games. Dragon Warrior 1 isn't any surprise to anyone, but Dragon Warrior 2, you don't see that one too often. And one that you definitely do not see too often would be Dragon Warrior 4. Trust me, I did not know that Dragon Warrior 4 was on NES. I honestly thought it would have been on Super Nintendo by the time this game would have come out. And I did manage to get that when it was still a nice price, which makes me happy. Speaking of happy, DuckTales. Now that is a ridiculously fun game.
Woo! DuckTales!
Of course, you can probably tell we've got a few of the Bible games, so the King of Kings, yes, you can always tell those because they have no in label and the cartridges look different.
I like a lot of the Bible games because you know me and the way I love to squeal about my colored cartridges. That's why I love the Famicom so much, because they're all colors, but we've got a couple of colored Bible games.
That's true, the baby blue Bible adventures.
So pretty, you can see it right up there in the corner too.
You have some other firsts like Metal Gear with the box art or the label art that's obviously Kyle Reese from the first Terminator movie. They just got away with so much back in the day, didn't they?
Show my favorite label.
What's your favorite label?
The old man in the rocking chair.
We're not there yet. We have a couple unopened e-reader cards. So Urban Champion, Donkey Kong Jr., Balloon Fight, and Mario Brothers. That's kind of neat, you know, if you're into that kind of thing. Moving down, we have How to Win at Nintendo. Oh, my secrets revealed. So basically, let me tell you, kids. Back in the day before the internet, this is what you had to have to get through those tricky games. And you had to hope that this book, or books like it, had a game that you needed to get through. In Contra, hey, you shut that Konami code off, it's a tough game. And if you heard any clinking, why, that would be my Game Booze flask. But just to cement that I'm obviously a raging alcoholic, you have The Legend of Drink. So, you know, the next time you're wanting to get drunk, but you don't want people to judge you, you know, you just look like some weirdo drinking out of your video game cartridge. So again, we have obviously the Gold Zelda games. Looks like we've got one of the Ultima games. Ultima is a very long-running RPG series. You got some Time Lord, not about Doctor Who. I was very disappointed in that. As I said, some of the Tengen games, these are the ones that wasn't Tengen, like the name that Atari used to be able to put games out, but not go through all of the Nintendo hoops. You got Tecmo Baseball, Tecmo Super Bowl, as well as Tecmo Bowl, of course. The Ninja Turtle trilogy, A lot of people used to think that the first game was really bad, but in recent years, I've been hearing that turned around. They're like, oh, no, it's not so bad. You know, it's not what you wanted from Ninja Turtles, but it's still a good game. That's kind of interesting, I thought. But, yeah, just so many good NES games. Down here, the Famicom games, obviously, as Lacey pointed out, they have their nice colors. Most of the time, they do not have end labels. Some have these nice stickers that look like end labels. I don't think that those were official. They may have been. But for the most part, we just kind of use a label maker to print off our own so we know what it is, so you don't have 7 white cartridges to choose from. The very first Famicom game I ever got actually was the original Final Fantasy, and it is complete in there. It's got the game and the tray, as well as the booklet. I always thought that was really cool. Of course, I love the artwork of Yoshitaka Amano. So all of the Final Fantasy games that he contributed some artwork to was always really cool to me. We have a complete in-box Dr. Mario Famicom. So, you know, if your diseases don't speak English and you need a different doctor, well, there you go.
That was my favorite game.
Of course, some little Mario figures, little Famicom tin, kind of a keychain, I believe. Just some fun little baubles that we've come across in our journeys, I suppose. The power-up energy drink. A friend of ours slammed this, and I think he went running down the street. We should probably look for him. You got a little Bellatrix putting a spell on Stan. Watch out, true believer. Moving down to the Super Nintendo games. A couple of things that are boxed. Most of the ones that are boxed were from mine when I was a kid. So you have Breath of Fire. So anyway, this was an interesting game. It's an RPG. It was done by Capcom, but it keeps having that Squaresoft logo on it. I believe the only thing they did was like the translation. But of course, whenever you see that Squaresoft tag on there, you're going to buy an RPG. When you're going to buy an RPG, you might as well go for one of the best, right?
Tell them about your box covers.
So I recently just started to pick up some of the plastic protectors for your boxes, and I love these things. Obviously, they keep the box safe and everything. You know, they're not getting rubbed, they're not getting squished. But if you have any boxes that are kind of in rough shape, this kind of helps fill them back out. They can kind of regain some of that shape and everything, you know, back to their true box form. But they also look so sharp, they're so clear, they take up hardly any extra space on the shelf. I mean, it's a very thin plastic, so it's not like you're bulking up your shelf space, but then also, whenever you have everything on your shelf, you're not smashing your boxes just trying to get them on display. I've only picked up some that work for the Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64. Really want to get some for the NES, and the companies that make these, I have seen that they make plastic cases just like this for loose cartridges. I want to get some of those too. Not for every single cartridge, but for, you know, your games like Dragon Warrior 4. That'd be a great time to have that in a plastic cartridge if you don't have the box or any other kind of protective means around.
And we found those on Amazon, and we can put a link down below to some of them on. And they're like, what are they like? Usually like 25 for like $10 or something.
Yeah, they're usually not too badly
not that
priced.
expensive.
I think at the worst, I've seen them priced for about $1 each. But in all honesty, if you're saving your game boxes, I think $1 a piece is worth it. And here's how they come shipped. They're folded down, so you just have to pop them into place and everything, which is usually pretty easy. Because it's a hard plastic, maybe it's just me. Sometimes when I go to fold the ends in, the ones that will actually tuck into the plastic, I might have, you know, maybe like a little edge snap, usually just at the crease, but still, they still stay together and everything, and they look really sharp on the shelf. We have a couple of Super Famicom games. We've got some of the boxed ones, which we've showed off before. Final Fantasy VI, obviously Final Fantasy III in America, is my favorite Final Fantasy game. So the chance to have it in the Super Famicom box is great because, of course, you have that wonderful Amano artwork. Yeah, that was going to happen. You get to see Terra on her Magitech armor right there. It just looks gorgeous as she's looking over the city. And my lovely wife was so nice that she made sure to get me a couple of specific Super Famicom games for the collection, because she knows I like to have pretty much every iteration of these two games that I can. But we've got some other fun ones as well. I can get to it. I just killed Link with the Doctor, no less. But Super Mario Kart, the Super Famicom.
Woo! See, the little tiny Lego Doctor killed big old Link.
Now here was
This is why it's annoying to have them set up that way, because you can see how hard it is to get them out.
So this is a interesting trilogy of RPGs on the Super Famicom that never made it to America, which is a shame because they are gorgeous when you look at them. So Romancing Saga, I think that they have kind of a slight link to the Saga Frontier games and so forth, but I do remember checking this one out, plugging it into a system just to look at it. Obviously I couldn't read the Japanese, but the opening little cinematic, in-game cinematic, was gorgeous. There were so many layers on the screen. You know, you had your background layer, you had like an additional background layer to kind of give a sense of movement. A girl is running by on a horse. There's kind of a foreground. There's an additional foreground with bushes that she's running by as she's going through a forest. And then there's a secondary foreground where there's rain falling on everything. And you definitely don't want to not show off Seiken Densetsu, I butchered that name too, which is Secret of Mana. Below that are the loose cartridges of the Super Nintendo games. Get the Zombies Ate My Neighbors, of course. There's a little stack right here, but again, spoilers, that's for something in the future. Let me get down and give you a little closer look. Gotta have one of the best brawlers on the Super Nintendo of all time, Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. Game is so much fun. Of course, you have your Super Mario World, your All-Stars with Mario World combo, and if you're going Mario, you might as well go Super Mario RPG. Another great role-playing game. The idea that Squaresoft was working with Nintendo was like a fan dream come true. I used to play a ton of SimCity on Super Nintendo. I think I used to drive my friends nuts with that. As far as role-playing games, of course, you got that Squaresoft brand of quality with Secret of Evermore and Secret of Mana. Let me know if any of you guys are going to pick up the re-release of Secret of Mana. I'm actually really looking forward to that. Move it, Dead Link. Of course, you had your Pilot Wings, and to bring up my wife's favorite game cover, there it is. Phalanx, with the old man sitting in his rocket chair. It's all about shooting stuff up in space. Because that's exactly what that looks like. If you want to fight, use a lot of combos, and delve into the world of techno and electronica music, can't go wrong with Killer Instinct. A very underrated RPG, Illusion of Gaia. I love this game. It's a very straightforward game, but it's very gorgeous, and it looks so much... It's just, I don't know, it's so fun. As I said, Dragon's Lair, it's on everything. Gotta have your Earthbound. And your Final Fantasies. Breath of Fire 2. So much better than the original in so many ways. And a super fun beat 'em up. Batman Returns. I love this game. Being able to grab clowns and throw them into the benches and storefronts and everything. Such good times. The next shelf is Nintendo 64. We've got a decent amount still boxed. Usually complete. We may be missing a manual here and there. Of course, you know, Banjo-Kazooie, F-Zero X. You got your GoldenEye. As you can see, I've got the protective cases on these. Again, the size for these is the exact same on the Super Nintendo, so if you have a lot of Super Nintendo and 64 boxes, this is a great buy because it fits both. Got your Killer Instinct Gold, which isn't as memorable as the original Killer Instinct. Now, the reason I have two boxes for Ocarina of Time is because one is the gray cart and one is the gold cart. And if you want a closer look, let me know and I can pull those out. They're not the easiest to quickly pull out when they're in the plastic. The version of Majora's Mask that I have is the collector's edition, meaning it's got that gold cartridge and then that lovely little lenticular label on the front. You have Perfect Dark, you got Pokemon Stadium in the massive box here. Now, problem is, as much as I love these game protector boxes, I don't know what I'm going to do with boxes like this because I don't know if they sell anything big enough for those. I guess we'll have to see or find another way out. Same goes for Star Fox 64, which came with the Rumble Pack, a very new addition to the Nintendo 64 back in the day. What would we do with Rumble without Rumble now? Of course, you got your Mario 64, and then all of the loose ones. Now, with the loose ones, I actually recently bought a collection of the end labels that Nintendo did not see fit to put on their games, but I have not, obviously, had a chance to put all those on there. So instead of pulling all those out and trying to guess some of those, we do have some of the classics. Hey You Pikachu, kind of a classic, I guess. But Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, of course, stuff like that. Below that, we have a couple of VHS tapes. You have the Diddy Kong Racing Get Ready, and the Zelda Majora's Mask with the sneak peek of Banjo-Kazooie on there. And this was an interesting find from a flea market one day. I saw the back, and I thought, that kind of looks like Link. When I flipped it around, it is the first episode of the Legend of Zelda cartoon. So even though someone had drawn on it, I still had to buy that. We do have it on DVD, but having that first episode on VHS, that's something kind of cool. You got the Phantom Hourglass lunchbox, and inside is where I keep, so it could be super safe, my Link Lolly. I have had this thing for so many years, and unfortunately this is where he stays just because I don't want his candied face to get all crushed and smashed. A friend of mine used to work at GameStop, and he set us up with the GameStop Managers Meeting Las Vegas poker set. So you have a deck of cards, and it's got a lot of the different Nintendo characters on it. And then you have actual poker chips that have, you got Link on one side. Actually, he's on both sides. You can see him there. And you have Mario, I believe that's Professor Layton. And then the other chips just have different game titles on there. So Star Fox, Dragon Quest Monsters, Kirby, is that Mass Attack? I don't even remember that one. But pretty much just kind of showing off the games to expect that year. In 2011, all the way back in the past. So that was kind of a cool thing. He got it just for being a manager. He brought it to us, actually, because he said he knew it would have a good home here. And that's true. It has a very nice forever home. So into the GameCube games, we actually do not have a whole lot. We have a lot of the typical ones, like the Wario World, Star Fox Adventures. We do have both of the Pikmin games because Lady Lacy would not have it any other way. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. If you like the Paper Mario fans, and let's face it, we're not going to get a true Super Mario RPG too, so that's what we have to deal with. Pac-Man Versus, now this is a dual pack, but Pac-Man Versus is a very fun game. You use the Game Boy Advance systems, you link it to your GameCube, and I think you have 3 people play the ghost on the TV screen, but they have limited view, whereas one person on their Game Boy Advance has the whole map, and they play Pac-Man as normal. So you have your friends controlling the ghost while you're playing as Pac-Man. It's really neat. The first Metroid Prime with a bonus disc for Metroid Prime 2. Probably one of the greatest releases on the GameCube. Twin Snakes, where you have Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. And Metal Gear Solid 1 has all of the awesome graphics from 2. Mario Kart Double Dash, the only time when you had two people on a race cart. You got Zelda Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and then the 2-game bonus disc with the Zelda Collection and the Master Quest. We got the big box for Four Swords Adventure because it came with the Game Boy Link cable. We were talking about that earlier. And then the promotional collector's disc that has Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask, plus a demo for Wind Waker, so you can get all kinds of Zelda time in just on your GameCube. This game was kind of a disappointment for me. Crystal Chronicles. It's a beautiful game, awesome music. I love the multiplayer aspect. Did not like carrying that chalice around. It really kind of ruined the flow of the game. Now in the bottom area, you've got some intelligence, and nothing too impressive. You know, it's kind of neat seeing Donkey Kong having a Nintendo game on a different system way back in the day. The problem with a lot of these boxes is that because of how old they are, how not well taken care of they were, a lot of them have begun to smash and be crushed, and you know, the tops are ripped open and everything. I really want to get some protectors for these, but you do have some great arcade classics. You've got, of course, your Pitfall, which I believe Jack Black did a commercial for that when he was a little kid. It was like one of his first acting jobs, I suppose. Burger Time is always a lot of fun, teaching us the magic of making burgers by running across all the ingredients. Because feet on burgers, why not? And next to that, we have some Odyssey 2 games in their boxes. And these are kind of cool because the Odyssey 2 had little handles on there. They have little pockets that you can actually put the booklets in on the side. And they always do a lot of colors whenever they do the inside of the covers for these. So they're kind of neat. You don't come across a whole lot of boxes, at least not in our area for those. On the very bottom, there's some Atari games in the boxes. I've got some like Combat here that look to be factory sealed, and I think that's the original plastic. It's Combat, so I've got no reason to open it anyway. I do have one for Star Raiders. It's one of the bigger boxes because it came with a specific controller. I think it's one of the, it's like one of the little touch controllers almost, you know, instead of the joystick. And then I've got some empty boxes down here as well that I need to fill up. There's one for Super Metroid, but we've taken care of that. So we actually don't need that empty box now. But this would be a nice one to fill, Mystical Ninja Goemon. But whenever I see that game by itself, it's not exactly in a price range I'm comfortable with. And at the very end over here, we have some Atari 5200 games in the boxes. Again, a lot of arcade classics. You got your Space Invaders. These are some more boxes that they're starting to get a little crushed. The tops are getting a little worn, so I really want to find some protectors for those. But you don't come across a whole lot of those. You have Pac-Man and Mario Brothers, and I believe these are some of the games from Lady Lacy's grandmother too, which is again kind of funny. Funny that she had the system, funny that she had so many games, and that she still had the boxes for all the games.
Yeah, because a lot of times those cardboards, they thought they were just like part of the packaging and threw them away.
Oh yeah, you open that up. You don't keep the cardboard, why would you? So other than some of the little pins that you've seen on the shelf, down here we have a very annoying, once you put all the batteries in it, a Sonic pinball machine. Once you put all the batteries in it, man, this thing rattles and shakes. It makes so much noise. It's nuts. You also have the hardback ASCII Game Boy case. This is the one that would carry your Game Boy, obviously, but then your power pack, your extra batteries, your lights, a couple of games. And Giant Link when he's not dead from the doctor, and a very, very curious cat that's wondering what is going on in here.